Michelle, we're ready.
Okay, give me one moment. It is recording.
I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 to order. As an exception, I'd like to place a motion if someone will second it. Now let me explain it first, is that I believe that we might do a better job of orienting our new commission members who take office on January 1st. If we give them a chance to sit back here, they won't be able to speak. I mean, into the mic. They can whisper to these two guys, and then that'll give them a more of an orientation for what it's like behind the dais, while our beloved Debbie will give them the orientation of what it's like outside the dais. And I'm sure Todd's going to help with that. So with that explanation, I'd like to move to allow our two new commissioners appointee pending for January 1st, David Dorian and Chris Olson, to be allowed to sit on the dais, and provided that they are not to speak on the record, so that they may obtain some more knowledge before they get here in January. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, the motion regarding allowing our two newly appointed for January commissioners to sit with us. Is there any objection? Hearing none, it's unanimously approved. Gentlemen, would you join us? Got this one, and the tall Mr. Olson's got, he can loom behind our council member left. You can ask Mike, just not when he or I are talking. Whisper to him and ask, or I are not talking. I mean, on the right. Okay, the next order of business is public comments. We have a new virtual participation process, which is the same as the city councils and is currently the city policy. So I'll read it just in case somebody does not know it who's online. To provide public comments virtually, please fill out the virtual public comment request form in advance of the meeting. The form closes at 12 noon on the day of the meeting. You will be confirmed by the clerk. If you are having difficulty, please reach out to the clerk at her email, which is on the agenda. Since this was published prior to noon today, I've been told that there are no applications. Just to be clear, this is the city policy currently for public comment at virtually at official meetings, which primarily are the council and us, because we're the two that so is there, since we have no one registered, we'll move on to, is there anyone registered for tonight here?
There's no in-person public comment tonight.
Okay, so we will move to the approval of the minutes. Is there any comment? So if there's no objections, we will approve the October 17th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any objections? Hearing none, they're approved unanimously. So our first agenda item is the comprehensive plan update for the review of the economic development element. I believe that we will begin amending this tonight once the staff presentations are done and any overall questions are answered or at least attempted to be answered by our staff. So Debbie, go
That's the
ahead.
plan. So in the, trying to be efficient on this, we provided answers to your questions, and I would say let's not spend any time on those unless there are follow-up questions. Let's jump right into the policies and try and get through those this evening. So I'm
So
gonna,
you have any other, that's that. Todd, do you have any other thing that you would like to say before we jump?
The only other addition that I wanted to add to the response of questions, one of them, I reached out to MRSC regarding the B&O tax. One of the questions from, I believe it was Commissioner Banashinsky, about B&O taxes and whether or not that has if there's a correlation between business growth and having or not having one. And the person, Steve Butler, who is a former planner and he works for MRSC, mentioned that there is no scientifically objective studies, but with that said, there's some studies that generally assert that B&O taxes make the business climate difficult. And there are some that say on their website that they don't have a B&O tax because it encourages business growth and development. So while there isn't anything scientifically, there's things out there that assert that not having a B&O tax is a benefit for cities, at least in encouraging growth for business. So I just wanted to add that to the list of responses.
Would you either assume or speculate that the business or I'm sorry, some of the water went down the wrong way there, that the business organizations, either statewide like AWB or local associations of business, the chambers, this is a common position that they take?
I would, without being a business owner myself, I would say that it's probably a benefit by not having one, at least in a pro-business sense. It depends on the local jurisdiction, of course, whether or not they adopt one and how that particular jurisdiction views it. But generally speaking, I think on the whole, not having a B&O tax is a pro-business policy to encourage business growth.
So where I'm going with this is it doesn't surprise you for that feedback.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Any other questions from the commissioners? So let's see here. We are going to deal with, let's do Purpose Growth Management Act and Vision 2050 first. Are there any questions, or would you like to say anything first? I should let you speak to
sorry, excuse me. I think at the last meeting you gave comments on changes in the introductory section. So I would say maybe look at those by exception to see if there's any additions, and then we can kind of go into the goals and policies, which is sort of the meat of the element and where we really need your feedback tonight.
So this is Commissioner Kadri. I do have a quick question on the purpose. I love how we've made it much more clear and concise and it's more direct. I guess my question is, enhancing city's tax base as a purpose. Can you clarify what that is? what does that mean? To enhance the city's tax base. And that's one of the purposes, so that's, that's the beginning of the document, so just wanted to see if we can maybe make it more clear.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could make it a little bit more clear in terms of enhancing it. It depends on, again, what the goals and objectives are for the city, but, we can see if we can dig in what that specific term means in regards to the economic development element, so.
Sure,
yeah.
thank you. If I can go on here, as far as under the Growth Management Act, specific goal regarding economic development, could we possibly bullet point or number the goals? I know when anyone sees these big, long paragraphs, it's kind of hard to follow. So I think if we can possibly bullet point some of these specific goals regarding economic development, I think that'd be helpful. I know later on in the document, we do have specific bullet points, which actually makes it much more easy to comprehend. So I think bullet points in that section would be very useful.
So you're still on page,
I'm
the
still on
first page,
I'm still on the first
under
page, yeah.
growth management.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. It's a suggestion. I don't
Okay.
know, but I think it'd be a lot easier to kind of follow the document.
Do the members agree?
Just a comment. I assume, Debbie, you're suggesting that we move to the goals, objectives, and policy section?
Well, I want to say that we addressed your questions from the last meeting, so the changes are shown in blue from the last meeting. So if those address your prior comments and we're all good, that's great. So we've heard a couple from Commissioner Cardry. He has questions on the changes that were made. So if there are any more like that, we're happy to address them.
I'm happy to move on to the goals and objectives, although I do have some follow-up, mostly editorial.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't want to
questions.
make an additional comment. We did ask if anybody had any additional comments. Commissioner Vanderland, thank you for sending your comments after the meeting. And so you'll see some of those have been incorporated into the new draft.
Yes, thank you. I did note those. I thank you for them. I have some additional ones, but rather than take time here, I'll email those to you. And
Those are administrative?
yes.
Okay, which is allowed by our current. But I did hear that you wanted us to make sure we went through the introduction first to make sure we're cleared that before we go to goals. So are there any other comments?
I've got one.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Well, okay.
Well,
Commissioners.
this will be my final one in the intro. Under City of Kenmore Economic Development Strategy and Approach,
What page
I
and
believe
line number?
that would be 4F3, is that?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
Actually, the next page after that, we have a three-pronged approach that's guiding Kenmore's economic development. Under C's strategic opportunities, I guess when I read it, it talks about what we've done in the past. It doesn't really talk about how we're going to do that. So maybe we could consider how we are going to seize these opportunities. I mean, we talk about the past, but we're not talking about, how that's going to happen, or just, a summary of how, what our plan is. So I would just make a suggestion to perhaps include that. I know the very last sentence maybe does cover that, but I think that paragraph in itself is focusing on the past, and so I think we would be beneficial for us to.
Right. I think in terms of seizing the opportunities, sometimes you don't know what those opportunities are until they present themselves. So there's not really a laid out plan for the opportunities. It's going to depend on what comes up. So the examples that are referenced there.
Now, these were back in 2018, correct? It's the current conditions.
These three-pronged approach is what is the current approach for economic development. So this is taken directly from the website about what that approach is. And this has sort of been vetted through the Kenmore Business Alliance as well. So seizing strategic opportunities, and the ones that they're referenced in there, it was when property, for example, you don't know when properties are going to come up for sale And when they do, if there's an opportunity that makes sense for the city to purchase those properties, to then buy them and then use them to further the city's goals. And in the case of recent property purchase, that was to further goals for developing the properties with affordable housing. So again, I think it's hard to sort of say how you're going to seize the opportunities, because who knows what those opportunities might be. So I don't know, I'm open to suggestions to clear that up.
Well, I guess what, if you scroll down to page 4F17, we talk about future trends, and we're citing 2010. The retail sales have grown since 2010. Well, retail sales have probably gone down since COVID. And so I think citing dates that were, 13 years ago, I think we may perhaps want to consider removing that data from 2010, as I think it was Commissioner Vanderleen talked about last time. The economy has changed, and so, I mean.
So that's a different section. So I'm trying not to mix things
Sure.
up together. So the seize the opportunities was the first comment you made. So does
Correct.
my response address that?
It does,
concern?
it does,
Okay.
it does, yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Commissioner Banazinski.
Yeah, Chair Thompson, I could use some clarity on like what the procedure for this first section is. I have about 3 or 4 things that are in the introduction before we get to the, do you want me to go through all of them, or
Yes,
do you want to do a
please,
page by
one at a
page?
time, so we know.
Okay.
Number one.
Right, so I am looking at line 29 on page 4F1, and it says provisions for, no, I'm sorry, line 28, provisions for economic growth and vitality. This comment would apply to most instances of that term being used in this element, and I did a lot of thinking about what philosophy of economic growth. There's like unbridled economic growth. There's like the expectation for continued economic growth. There are lots of ways to think about it, and some of them have turned out to be not so great for sustainability. So I'm wondering if the commission would be comfortable including some adjectives there where appropriate in this case. Something like inclusive and sustainable economic growth. I looked at a UN report on economic growth, and that's the language that they used.
Okay, so what line are we on here?
Line 28 on page 4F1.
And you would suggest,
Provisions for inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
so that's for sustainable. So that's the 2 words you want to put in.
For inclusive and sustainable, yeah.
Inclusive and sustainable.
Sustainable, yeah.
So that's after the word provisions for, and
Yeah.
so it's after the word for and before the word economic. All right. Comments? If there's no objections, we'll go ahead with that amendment. Number 2.
Okay, and then this is on lines 20 and 21 on page 4F2. This is a new addition, which I really appreciated. It's in blue. It references air emissions as part of a concern with reducing commute times and traffic congestion. And it occurred to me that there are other pollution types that are also a problem with vehicular travel, and especially reliance on mostly single occupancy vehicles. So I would propose saying reduce commute times, traffic congestion, and air emissions and other vehicle related pollution. And the one specifically I was thinking about were tire dust. We know that tire dust, when it oxidizes, it creates a chemical that is lethal to some fish. And then there's also oil leaks that come with cars. It's also gets into our watershed and creates pollution. So that my suggestion again was air emissions and other vehicle related pollution.
And other vehicle pollutions.
Vehicle related, yeah.
Correct.
Yes,
After the word emissions.
yes.
Comments? Any objections? Hearing none, the amendment's adopted. Next, number 3.
This is line 17 on page 4F3. It's just an instance where I saw citizens, and I know that we've routinely been replacing that word with residents, so I would recommend that we do that here. Okay, and then,
No, that's okay. I'm
that
a
okay?
little lost.
Oh, sorry.
Line number on F3.
it's, yep, line 17. Says economically disadvantaged citizens and neighborhoods.
Right.
So I would recommend economically disadvantaged residents and neighborhoods, just because for consistency, we've been replacing citizens with residents and
Oh,
other elements.
any objection? Amended, adopted. And number 4.
You're gonna keep me to that quick, aren't you? Okay, so this last one is more of a question and also just a comment. On page 4F5, I guess it's line 15, it's in the table ED1. We have population, households, median age, and then median male age and median female age. My question is, what gender information is collected? And is it possible to make this table more gender inclusive?
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Don't know. Yeah, I need to
That's
check
something
the-
we'd have to look at the data source and
Yeah.
see how it's collected.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'm
we'll
just
put
thinking
that
about,
off on a list for next time.
okay. And I think that,
Next time, Debbie.
I had another gender inclusivity comment, but I believe it comes in the later. So I think that's all for the introduction. Thank you so much.
Could I ask one final question?
Commissioner Cadre.
This is a question. Is there a difference between associate degree versus?
Could you speak into your mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a difference between an associate degree and higher educational attainment? I know that the intro has differentiated the two, but would you happen to know, it's an associate degree at a higher education? I think, I'm not sure what the difference is between an associate and a higher education.
I can look into that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any comments on the, as I would call it, the introduction part? And that would bring us all the way through. Let's see, that would bring us all the way to F10. Right? So I failed to do something at the beginning of the meeting, and that is to recognize our retiring commissioner and council member-elect Nathan Lutzis, who is going to be leaving us as of the end of the year and assuming some other job in the city government. And I think I'll let any of the members roast him as they wish before he gets to say anything.
Oh, you don't want to save this till the end?
No, I mean, anyone who wants to say anything about you, how much they've enjoyed. I will say, I personally appreciate all the work that you've done on the council, on the commission. And you've been on now 5 years. Thank you. I can't count past 4, so it's 5 years. And for a young man, that's quite a young adult, young man, has quite a feather under your cap and a great experience for all of us, and I would expect yours. Now, I'm looking to,
I just wanted to make a quick comment,
okay,
you know.
Commissioner Cadre.
You know,
He
being,
jumps in very quickly.
yeah, that's, yeah,
That's your
I made it
lawyer
here
self.
physically today, so take advantage of that. You know, being 42 years old, known as a geriatric millennial, and Nathan, you make me proud in terms of, you know, what you're doing at a very young age, and so I'm very happy for you, and it's been an honor and you know, a pleasure kind of being next to you and discussing a few things with you. So thank you very much, and good luck with your future. Yeah.
Well, I have to jump in there. I mean, you mentioned geriatric. I mean,
Yeah, we're right.
I'll try not to be offended. But I don't know how much I need to say, but it's really been a pleasure and I've enjoyed. We've had some great conversations. The contribution you've made, particularly seeing you tend to agree with me most of the time, I think shows a great level of intellect and maturity. And I'm sure you're gonna bring that to the city council, which I think they're gonna benefit from greatly. So, hope to see you again in the future.
When we go with this element to the council, we'll wink at him. All right, and so Commissioner Benaziski, you've been waiting to have you at him.
Yeah, Nathan, I've really enjoyed sitting next to you on Planning Commission, and I'm always impressed by your thoughtful comments. Your level of attention and care and detail to your work has been really appreciated. Been a good example for all of us. And I look forward to seeing you in the same place when I'm standing at the podium making public comment.
Oh, Commissioner Wyckoff.
Yes, I am so impressed, have been since I met you, and I can't wait to watch from the public box as you excel. Your tact and your diplomacy has been very impressive, and I'm very excited to have that as a benefit to the council. And on a personal note, any friend of the golf cart is a friend of mine.
Commissioner Council Member-elect Lutzes, now you can roast the rest of us.
I don't have any roasts for the rest of you guys. I've learned a lot over these last 5 years from each and every one of you. There's been different unique lessons that I'll take away from me. And I promise that, you know, although I might be moving on, you guys certainly will still hold a near and dear place in my heart. I won't forget you guys. So I do enjoy and look forward to those joint meetings in the future. So thank you. I cannot thank you enough. And same with city staff who've been watching all of it. Debbie, you, and Lori, who's now not here, but you guys were both very instrumental. And Todd. I mean, in the short amount of time, I've still learned lessons from you too. So I appreciate that.
Well, we all wish you the best, even though you're leaving us. So the other announcement is that seated with us, as I mentioned before, is commissioners to be on January 1st, David Dorian and Chris Olson. And on behalf of the commission, we're very happy to have you. And for once on January 1st, we will have 7 whole members of the commission. Yes. So congratulations. So the only bad news here is that Commissioner Benaziski, our wild and crazy environmentalist, as was pointed out during her confirmation hearing, and your reluctant chair here, Chair Thompson, very reluctant, which was also pointed out during the hearing. But Benesinski's already laughing, so she got it worse than I did. Anyway, we did get reappointed, and you poor guys have to put up with us for 3 more years, and it's been a pleasure, and I'm very humble and thankful to be back at this for 3 more years. And Benesinski, did you want to say anything about it? You can make 4 points if you want.
I think I already made my 4 points in the introduction, and I'm just trying to forget about the rest, so no comment on that.
All right. So now with that formality, and I'm sorry I didn't get it over with in the beginning, we're going to move on to page F10. Am I correct, staff? And that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
Okay, so F10, and I flipped the page. So let's do 11 through 14. Seems like there's a big white spot at line 29 on 14, so we should take advantage of white spots. So any comments?
I'll just,
Commissioner
thank you.
Vanderlyn.
I'll just point out that this is one section where I'll be sending you some questions or comments on, particularly the consistency between the 2 graphs that are in this page and then the way they're explained in the commentary. I had some trouble following consistency, so I'll send you some suggestions on that.
So that's a question to get back to, and so we might at that next meeting. Okay, any other comments through F14? Commissioner Vanderlyn.
This I think I will make a mention of now because I think it may be something the commission wants to think about. In beginning on line 14, jobs housing ratio. In the beginning, we're talking about a jobs housing ratio, and then have a description about what a low would be. In the next paragraph in blue, we've switched it here to a housing to job ratio, which gives us a ratio that's explained here as the exact opposite of what's explained in the paragraph above. I think you just need to decide what the ratio is, what's in the numerator and denominator, and then adjust the verbiage to be consistent with that.
Okay. Any further comments through F14? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to, so we're going to go through 15, 16, 15, 16, 17. Well, I'll just move right on through the demand section, which would I'm kind of confused here. Office demand, clean. Well, let's go through to page 18. There's charts in between. So that's 15, 16, 17, and 18 is what we're up to now. Everyone's quiet. Okay, we'll move on. So let's go 19 through 21. You know, this is so much easier than Zoom to figure out if someone's going to talk. Commissioner
No comment.
almost gone loses.
Just a quick question for city staff. I know in previous elements, we've shied away from calling out specific businesses and specific things like that. But I know in here, we are calling out specific businesses. Is there a difference here and why it would be more important rather than just generalizing the sector in particular? Or I'm just curious to hear the pros and cons and why we do that here and not in other elements.
I don't think there's a specific reason. I guess if we decide to not do that for, trying to find the right word, fairness, right? We don't want to pick specific businesses to promote them for some reason. I can see that being a consideration.
Mhm.
So maybe if the commission feels strongly that we want to play a neutral part in that, then that's, I guess that would be something that would be interested to confirm. But yeah, we did not intend to name out specific ones. I think it just kind of was drafted that way. So
I'm specifically looking at 4F19
Mhm.
and Kenmore Air Harbor, which I know is called out by name in this case, and so I don't know if there's a
that one is an exception. So good that you pointed that out. So I got feedback from Puget Sound Regional Council, which I mentioned, I think before. We have to send each of our elements for their review to make sure that it's checking all the boxes. And in fact, the economic development strategies guide that they have, this element was completely rewritten to make sure that we followed that format. So the jobs to housing ratio, what we're calling the SCOT, the regional growth strategies, all those concepts are because of the PSRC new direction that they want to do. So one of these is the planner that reviewed it gave feedback and mentioned, you talk about a lot of good things, but one of your greatest assets is your Kenmore Air Harbor. And I know that's a business, but it also is I don't know if it falls into the same category as SeaTac as an essential public facility, but it is a air facility that provides passenger service. And so therefore, they felt that it was important to indicate that as such. That being said, again, it kind of falls into that sort of, yeah, we're calling out a business, but it is truly a unique circumstance that pretty much no other community around us, with the exception of maybe, Seattle, because they're the other air harbor that they gave the guidance to say, please call that out. So that's why that specific one has been added.
So does it make sense to include Bastyr University as well then at that point? I
Ye-
mean, it's the only
to
it's a naturopathic medical school, the only one that we have in Washington State, from my understanding. I mean, that's a highlight that we should probably maybe include, especially after COVID-19.
I thought that was in there.
I mean, if we're calling out Kenmore Air here, I'm talking about in the intro on page 4F19. I would maybe suggest that we highlight Bastyr University as well under future trends, because it is a growing school, especially after COVID-19. Naturopathic medicine certainly is a growing trend. And so I do think that might be something that I would move to include and highlight Bastyr University as well under future trends.
So the future trends. So I do see on 419, we say under the strengths, we mentioned Bastyr, but you're suggesting that we put that kind of at an additional, I guess I could see the point in that universities like Cascadia, UW, Bothell, or those that would be in other jurisdictions that would fall under the same category. This is a unique
exactly.
university.
It's a very unique university. It is. It does produce doctors who practice naturopathic medicine. So I think just like Kenmore Air is an international airport, essentially, I think Bastrop University is the only naturopathic medical school in this area. And so I think that's something that we should include.
So is there objection to have a section for Bastyr on the opportunity side? Okay, so we would like to have that included. Now, I have a technical question. And actually, isn't the business named Kenmore Air?
That's correct, yeah.
So
there's-
Kenmore Air Harbor is actually a location.
It's that's true, that's,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep, you're going exactly where I was. And I was going to suggest maybe a change in the title here. What we're really calling out here is not the Kenmore Air. We're calling out our airport, Kenmore apostrophe S Air Harbor.
Okay,
Mhm.
The service, not the company.
Yes, how does that
well-
sound, staff?
That's fine.
I guess a
Wow.
follow-up question I have to that is the last line of that saying that the Air Harbor employs approximately 250 people. Is that the Air Harbor that employs them, or is that Kenmore Air?
Well,
that, to my understanding, it's the harbor. So it's the business Kenmore Air plus all the associated businesses in the harbor. So that's in totality.
Okay,
So I guess if you're, just to clarify, we want to say, I heard Kenmore's Air Harbor, but I know in some things that I've read, it says Kenmore Air Harbor, but there's also Kenmore Air. That's the business. Kenmore Air Harbor is the harbor, but well, I guess what's the preference of commission? Is it Kenmore's with apostrophe S or?
yes, I think so. Is that true? That's what I heard. Yes, please. So it's just like all of this discussion, I'm just drawing a similarity, but a lot of this discussion about Lake Point.
Mhm.
So, we're thinking of the future development of Lake Point as a property, not as a business, is supposed to include some employment and economic development as well as housing. I'm just saying in general, not anything official, but I was just using that as another analogy. Okay, is there, so that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna change to Kenmore's with apostrophe S. And for the record, the commission position is this is not a specific employer.
I'm sorry, I missed that. So Kenmore, the Air Harbor is the location. Kenmore Air is the business that operates out of Kenmore Air Harbor.
Right.
Okay.
And
That's exactly true.
okay,
That's right.
so, but also Bastyr is a business, but we're saying that that's a university, right? So we still are okay with including that because it is a facility for educational purposes. It's not really a business in the sense that Kenmore Air is providing services for flights.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I make sure.
We're threading a needle here, but I think this is a pretty elegant solution.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't want to extend this any further, but one thing, maybe in the future, when we're looking at this section, it would be nice to maybe explicitly talk about what the economic impact of Kenmore Air Harbor is, which would be beyond the employment of just Kenmore Air.
Right.
That has a bigger impact on our community than just that.
Commissioner on a golf cart leaving Lutz's.
Is it okay if I echo your point, Commissioner Bonazinski? So on page 4F20, there is a sub bullet point that calls out or not a bullet point, a sub paragraph that calls out Bastyr University. And we were just talking about that because I know if we're creating separate paragraphs or sections for different organizations, whether they be nonprofits or for-profits or whatever, then it's like, where do you draw the line? You know, do we want to include the lodge for its services that it provides there? And will we have other businesses coming to us and saying, why didn't you include them there? I don't know how the commission feels about, since Bastyr is already called out here, we just kind of leave it and don't, you know, spend too much time figuring out which businesses should be recognized and which ones not.
If I could quickly respond to this, Commissioner Codry. I guess my proposal was based off the section that it's saying future trends. And again, we got out of a pandemic, and I think future trends, I mean, including Bastyr University under future trends, in my opinion, makes a little more sense. Or perhaps take it out of the later section and put it in under future trends, because you know, I do believe that's it's going to be a growing university for the next many years. And I think natural pathway medicine, which Bastyr University does focus on, is truly a growing future trend. And I think it makes sense to include it in that section.
Commissioner Banaszewski.
Todd, this is a question for you. Did the feedback that you got from the planner, was it specifically to include Kenmore Air Harbor under future trends? Was it specific direction, or was that your discretion?
Let me see her specific response. Apologies, I'm just looking at her email here real quick. Yeah, I mean, she says Kenmore Air Harbor, but it's not. Again, I don't think she makes the distinction between the business and that. I think where the commission is going makes sense, that we're not calling out the business. My interpretation of what they were looking for is, again, like I described earlier, it's really it's the operational of the airport itself, or air harbor, not Kenmore Air as its entity. So because it is a sort of quasi essential public facility, it's not, I don't think it technically is in state law, but it is a facility that is a important economic driver or asset to the community of Kenmore plus Seattle. So
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm recalling that we got feedback to specifically include either Kenmore Air or Kenmore Air Harbor in a different element, the land use element. There's an element where it has its own whole section. Is this for similar reasons?
There's probably mention under the transportation section for sure.
In land use, and you make note of that on
And
line
also in
24.
land use, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where it would pop up.
I guess that the place my thinking is going is that if we weren't directed specifically by the planner to include it under future trends, I feel like it would fit very cozily under strengths. Because I feel like the other things that are under future trends, there's retail demand, office demand, manufacturing demand. These are all broader categories of income generating activities, you know, and this Kenmore Air Harbor doesn't, it's one of these things is not like the other. And it feels like for me, that's more of a strength of Kenmore, given our location, that we have the facility to have an air harbor in the first place. And number two, just the historic accident that they happened to found an air company here in Kenmore. So I would propose moving Kenmore Air Harbor down into the strength so that it can sit right alongside Bastyr as another strength.
And I agree with that. If that is the case, I would rescind my proposal of putting Bastyr University under future trends and put it under strengths, which is, it's already there, I think, Bastyr University section. So I think Kenmore Air would be under strengths, in my opinion. That's what Tracy's proposal is, and I would completely agree with that. And so if are you gonna make a motion for that? That's at this point, I guess, or?
Well, okay, so just, no, well, why don't you, so what do you propose specifically to do?
So I'm proposing to move the section on Kenmore Air Harbor.
So
Which
that's
is-
page and line.
Oh, sorry. It's on page 4F19 that starts at line 16, Kenmore Air Harbor. It goes up to line 24. I propose moving that whole section down to page 4F20 or 21, wherever it happens to fall, under the strengths section.
That is the proposal, staff's response.
That's fine.
Mhm.
Because that's
Is there any
the general-
objection?
Got it.
No objection? So ordered. Now, are we, any other suggestions?
In that
Commissioner
case,
Flynn.
I would rescind my motion to put Bastyr University under future trends.
We're good now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Wyckoff.
I just wanted to point out on F420, line 11, we struck on the strengths, weaknesses that was struck, switch it to challenges and opportunities and threats, but we didn't switch the SWOT at the end to Scott.
I'm with you.
Oh, did I miss one?
It's just a
Oh.
Yeah,
typo on
just
page
missed a
11.
Scott.
Okay, that's
Scott.
administrative change.
Oh, you're right. Oops. I thought I grabbed that. I guess I didn't.
Okay, any other comments through page 21? Through page 21. Hearing none, we are now going to page 22, 23, 22 and 23. There seems to be no comments. Okay, hearing none. We now will begin the goals, objectives, and policies. So we're going to start with goal of economic development, ED. I have to polish my glasses. They are progressive, but okay, this is ED1. Okay, so we're gonna go through ED1, so that starts on page 24. And that's page 24. There any comments or other suggestions? Hearing none, we're going to move to, let's see, I gotta get this right here. Goal number, objective number 2, and the policies they're under through on page 25, 1 through line 29. Commissioner Banazinski.
I have a comment about policy ED 2.5. It's on page 4F25. line 16 and 17. It reads right now, permit home businesses within residential zones consistent with a residential character. I am wondering if we can move away from residential character. So we've taken that out of our vision statement and a lot of our other elements. If we can find some words to better describe what we mean by those words. I was thinking maybe neighborhood context, permit home businesses within residential zones consistent with the neighborhood context. That was my best effort.
Staff, do you have any comments for that suggestion?
I don't. This is an older policy, so I think it's up for updating. Yeah.
We can verify the words used in other elements to be consistent.
Or anything that the commission suggests, so.
We just had a suggestion.
Yeah, my suggestion was neighborhood context. It's not a strongly held suggestion, but that was my best suggestion. Permit home businesses within residential zones consistent with the neighborhood context.
Okay, that's on line 16, 17. Is there any objections to this? Okay, so it's approved. Okay.
Before you move on, I do want to go back to Debbie's comment. It would be good to go back and make sure we're consistent in what we're describing here.
Mhm.
Oh, Commissioner, let me check. Nathan Lutzis.
Yeah, I had a couple of quick questions. The first of which is on policy ED 2.6, which says encourage adequate childcare and adult care facilities to support a diverse workforce. I had a question. What does adequate mean? Is that just one, or is that a percentage of the workforce? I'm just kind of curious.
Don't know. Sorry. That's another old policy. I'm not sure what the definition of that in this context means. So that would be another one up for consideration if there's a better language.
I'm all for it. I'd just like some clarification on what that's to expect.
You could just strike it. Adequate. Wait, go ahead, Commissioner Banazinski.
Having a child, something that I feel like it can be a problem is affordable childcare. Quality of childcare is also an issue. So those are two words that I feel are more descriptive of the challenges that working parents face than adequate. I would not actually want to put my child in adequate childcare.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you had adequate childcare when you were young.
Yes, yes.
So you're suggesting those two
Good
words
enough.
are,
I think I said affordable and quality.
okay, so that would be substituted for the term adequate. Are there any further comments on that or any objections to that? Oh, Commissioner Lutzis.
No objections to that. I love that. I think that's quite a bit better. My next comment comes on policy ED 2.8.
Well, okay, let's.
Oh, sorry.
Just hold tight. You know, this is what happens when someone gets promoted. They think they're the chair. We've been replaced. You know, what can we say? All right, so seeing that there's no objections to Commissioner Banazinski's prior motion, we will ask that that be done. Okay, eager Commissioner Lutzis. Know how long it took me to get that right?
Oh no, how long have you been on the commission?
Thanks. that was good. Okay, you get it. You get it. That's good. It's just, oh goodness.
Let us come off now.
Yeah, that's, no, not at all. My next comment comes on policy ED 2.8 that says to support Kenmore's economic development approach, continue to facilitate permitting for new and expanding businesses, blah, 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 blah. Property acquisitions where possible to achieve economic development strategies. My question comes with where possible. I think there could be a better word there. I think if it's just where possible, it sounds like the city's going to buy up everything that it can. And so maybe where reasonable, where targeted, where strategic. I like that word too. Just maybe something other than possible.
I like strategic personally. But
Strategic.
Strategic's a good-
Let's go
that's a
for
good
it.
one. Yep.
What are we doing?
We're striking in policy ED 2.8 line 25 on page 4F25, the word possible, and swapping that with strategic.
Okay,
Yeah, or it could be worded, that's good, or we could say expanding businesses and facilitate strategic property acquisitions to achieve. Could be either way.
Sure.
well, we don't want to line it like we shouldn't read it like it has to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That's true. Good
so it
point.
was where strategic
Yeah,
to
that's good.
achieve,
Yep, that makes sense.
if I may.
What about necessary? When necessary, something like that.
I'm kind of a fan of the strategic.
I like
Portion.
strategery.
Strategery, that's right.
Well, wait a minute, wait, just hold on.
Okay, all right.
The staff would like to comment on
No,
this.
no, I wouldn't. I already said I like strategic. I've already commented, so you have my 2 cents.
Oh, so there's now a nickel up strategic.
I offer my 2 cents for strategic.
Okay, is there any objection to replacing that word with strategic? Okay, hearing none, that will be what we will do. Is there anything more on, oh yes, Commissioner Vandeling?
Yes, policy 2.9, consistent, line 2, line 28, consistent with 3 prongs of the city's economic development approach. Who knows how many prongs there might be in the future? This is a brand new policy, which could almost certainly be within the 20 years of the plan, be replaced by something else. So I would suggest we say consistent with strike of the 3 prongs. So he reads consistent with the city's economic development approach.
Agreed.
Are there any objections to that? Okay, that is another blue amendment. Okay, are there any more for number 2? Seeing and hearing none, now we're going to objective 3. And that just has 3 items ending on the top of page 26. Don't hear any comments. I don't see any comments. I don't know if you can see what you hear, but oh, are you ready?
3, yes, okay.
Commissioner Lutzis.
I just am looking for a clarifying point regarding. Okay, I think this is the ED, what is this, 3.1, when it talks about improvement districts loans or grant matching and other mechanisms to revitalize the commercial centers. So that would be through private reinvestment. I know it says that in the first line, but are improvement districts usually private, or is that a public strategy?
Yeah, I think where this is going would be like a TIF, right? Like a tax increment finance, or a specific zoned
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be something that would be publicly initiated.
Okay.
Unless there's a private one that I'm not aware of. I don't know.
I just know that it starts off support private reinvestment
Yeah,
and businesses through business improvement districts.
yeah.
And so I was a little confused about, it kind of felt like muddled between public and private there. And would it make sense to split that up between private methods, or is the city itself also doing loans and grant matching and things
Well,
for private businesses?
The other point is that you establish the TIF and then businesses come in. I thought that that's usually how it works.
Mhm.
How's your
I think
comment? Go ahead.
I think it's related to one another, but I'm not a business or economist, so, I mean, there's probably a reason why this was drafted 20 years ago, so I don't assume.
Well, it's been updated since 20 years.
Oh,
I
okay.
can tell you that.
2015, oh, sorry.
No,
it says 2015.
25 years ago.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if you look at these are actions that the city would take to support private investment.
Simple consensus.
I'm sorry, I was
So
keeping
to
these
support,
quiet.
sorry, to support private investment in shopping centers. The rest of the sentence means those are actions the city could take to support those businesses. That's how I'm reading it. But obviously it's not clear.
And then my question for that is the city offering loans and grant matching and things like that? Is the city in the loan business? Or is that supposed to be separate?
I think these are examples. I don't think these are the only ones. So maybe you could say after private and local shopping and businesses through such things as, or examples. These are examples. These are not kind of what the city is doing. These are things that you could do, the city could do to support that.
Or the other perspective, if I may, is that the business could look at getting a small business loan, a federal loan or a state loan. It doesn't really say where the loans are coming from. It just says, you know, that it's that's an option.
Right. So these are, it's basically talking about what are the mechanisms. And these are examples of the mechanisms that could be utilized to support private reinvestment.
We could just change the word through to such as.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
I get what this is intended to do here. I agree with what you're saying, Debbie. The language, though, seems to me to be a bit dated. So if we were to say something like support private, not reinvestment, but investment in local businesses through business improvement districts, et cetera, taking out the local, taking out the shopping centers, which is today. Open it up to a wider.
Okay.
If I may add on to that, potentially through the potential use of tools such as improvement districts.
That's right.
And then that kind of opens the door to other things, or maybe not using them, so.
No, I think that's where we want to go with this.
Okay.
Okay, so we have crossing out. Oh, go ahead if you.
No,
I'm sorry,
I just want to make,
jumped
no,
ahead.
no, please don't apologize. I think it's basically says, so right now it says support private reinvestment in local serving shopping centers and businesses through, and that would be replaced with support private investment in local businesses through the potential use of tools such as, and then there would be the list. Did I get that?
Commissioner Lutz.
So if, do we want to take out reinvestment and just replace it with investment throughout, or is there, what's the difference in terms of in this section?
So let's deal with this one first and then figure out whether if that private reinvestment makes sense, or it should all be changed to investment.
Oh, yeah, I guess I was looking at the next one, 3.2, the one right after where it just says,
Right, I see that, yeah.
yeah.
So that's included in this, getting the re out of it, both of them. Okay, so let's do 3.1. Okay, Commissioner Wyckoff.
I just wanted to share some light from a small business that has benefited from the city doing something such as this, which is not one of the listed items. But what we were offered and took advantage of was the city saw an opportunity after 192 established that it was a welcomed business model in the community. And when they saw the support in the community, what they offered was that any business along the 522 corridor between 175th and the Burke Trail, from the intersection there at Starbucks all the way to 68th, the process standardized would be to pay for a traffic study and had a lot of expenses tied to developing any of those properties if somebody wanted to do what we were attempting to do, which was take a warehouse of a previous use and intent and convert it to a retail use. It would have cost well north of $250,000 was the estimate to fulfill all the obligations of the standard city modifications to the uses. So they waived that, brought it down to, I think it ended up being a flat $5,000 or $2,500 for any business that wanted to take this on. They gave us 2 years window to meet that obligation, to fulfill that conversion. And there were safety checks and building codes and all of these things that needed to be fulfilled, but it really made it achievable. And this was us working with our landlords to reinvest in those properties to bring them up to the new codes that would be needed for retail use versus a couple people wandering around a warehouse is much different than 100 people hanging out and eating. But that was one of the examples that the city offered and did and followed through on, which obviously resulted in 3 of those properties being converted for a much lower cost with the help of the city. So it wasn't necessarily a grant, it was a waive of fee in that particular instance. So that's something that has happened and definitely changed the scope of that side of Kenmore.
That makes a lot more sense when I read this section, so thank you for that, yeah.
Go ahead.
So Commissioner Wyckoff, are you suggesting we put in like fee abatement as another tool, or that would
Okay, where would we put that?
maybe just at the end of that list?
Loans, grants, fee abatements. That was literally what it was, and that flipped the switch for us.
Okay. Any objection from staff?
Nope.
Wonderful. Any objections from the commission? Hearing none, we will do that. And with the permission of the commission, we grant you the ability to do what you need to do in that sentence so that it reads right. Okay.
Take care.
Okay, so we are, anything more for number 3? So we're up to number 4. This is on page 26. Hearing no discussion, we'll move to number 5, and that is also on page 26. Okay, we're moving right along.
general comment.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Vanderlin.
Looking at 5.1 and several other places through these couple of sections we're looking at right now, there seems to be a focus on revitalization. And I'm not sure that's really where we want it. Certainly there are businesses here that need to be or could potentially be revitalized, but I think new businesses, new investment. I think we're limiting our scope here.
Yeah, and this again, maybe we need to update the language because the previous downtown plan has been implemented. So now we're in the next phase or next life cycle of a new one, which Debbie and I and the city management are discussing. What do we do next? So yeah, makes sense.
So what do we do with 5.1? Commissioner Benaziski, the reluctant environmentalist.
I am anything but a reluctant environmentalist. I'm quite enthusiastic about that part of my identity.
I'm sorry, I need to.
So this is, I agree with Mike, and it's also a little bit of a counterpoint. I do know that there has been a lot of revitalization in the downtown core, including the hangar and the Kenmore Town Square and Stoop. And I feel like there is still a lot of work to be done. We still have a lot of useless paved asphalt parking lots that really could be revitalized and put to much higher use. So I wonder if it could be, but I do agree too, Todd, like you said, we are in a slightly different phase since we do have the strong anchor of the hangar and City Hall and the things that are around us. But maybe it's a continued revitalization or a building on the momentum that the city has achieved or something. But I don't think we're quite revitalized yet to the extent that I would love for us.
Just out of curiosity, I typed in, synonym of revitalization, reactivation, or regeneration, or this one, I don't think we'd want to use rebirth. But those are just some of the terms that, we could, it's the updating of the word. It still has the same intent, but, carrying on its goal and objective.
I'm even okay with continued revitalization.
Continued,
Yeah.
I guess I'm mostly looking for something that's more forward-looking here. Get into saying things like revitalization, redevelopment. Has a different connotation to it.
How about just continued vitalization?
Yes, that's good.
We're getting rid of REs all the way through this. Yes, we are. We're unread, right? Okay, continued economic vitalization. Okay, that was one idea that I heard. Are there any other things that would be better than that? The staff is smiling broadly.
I don't know if vitalization is a word, is it? I mean, or did you just make one up?
Oh, no, it says the state of being vitalized and filled with life.
And if you're revitalized, then you've been dead.
15 points on scrap.
Revitalize is to give new life, but vitalize is to state of being vitalized with life.
I'm sorry.
Could we just remove it? I mean, just put economic growth and
Yeah, sure.
revitalization is
Too.
part of economic growth, I believe. So
That's not as much fun.
I think it makes sense.
So
to
I've
remove.
got three possibilities now. Is we we have a vitalization, we have, and continued economic revitalization, we have, and continued economic vitalization, or we have, and economic growth. So those are the three I'm tracking right now.
Okay, so if we can, if each of you could let me know which one you prefer, and we'll get it down to two.
Economic growth.
Economic growth.
That's two,
Economic growth.
that's three.
I'd
That's
like to
four.
stick with economic revitalization and growth.
Okay, so now we're down to economic revitalization, with the RE. Is that right? Okay. I just want to make sure. And then the other option is just economic growth, right? That was the other. Okay, so discussion on those two. You can make your point, Commissioner Benaziski.
Yeah, if we went with economic growth, I think I would like to have, again, those adjectives before that I talked about at the beginning, which I think were inclusive and sustainable. I feel uncomfortable promoting economic growth in the way that we have historically thought about it as just something that is unlimited. I don't think that is sustainable. And so that's my main problem with just going with economic growth. I don't think it really captures the spirit of what we need in our community. That's kind of why I like revitalization, because to me that suggests life. So that's why I would like either economic revitalization and growth, or something like, and inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
So you would prefer the last now, is that right? If you had to choose, you would prefer your last suggestion,
Yeah.
inclusive. Okay, so now.
But I'm only one vote, and I
No,
understand that.
I know, but it's fine. But
You're two.
You voted in the minority there, so you are fine to reconstruct your proposal, which is now and inclusive and sustainable economic growth is now an option to just economic growth.
Yes, I'm doing ranked choice voting here. My first choice is, as it is, economic revitalization and growth, and my second vote is inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
Okay, it's just so you know, the rest of the other part is striking revitalization, just that's the other group. Okay. Commissioner Lutzis.
This is going to address your point. Looking at the policy ED 5.3, the third point there, the last line says result in an inviting and vital central core that is self-supporting. And I was going to suggest striking self-supporting and putting sustainable. And for me, that's why I was in favor of economic growth, because I felt that potentially when we got to 5.3, that would incorporate the vital part as well as the sustainable part. But that was my perspective. And so I don't know if that sways anything at all, or if you want to add to that or whatever, but that was my thinking.
No, I like that. Thank you for pointing that out. And I do still think if we go with economic growth, I would still lobby for inclusive and sustainable, based on, again, my discomfort with the idea, with how we have historically thought about economic growth. I feel like, especially upfront in the objective in bold, I just feel like it needs a little bit of a rethinking.
Well, and also just as a point, how you look at and define what is sustainable is a wider catch area. Okay, any further comments on Commissioner Bansinski or comment on just doing economic growth? Okay, here we go. So that it's only two options. It's economic growth or the line that would be and inclusive and sustainable economic growth. That's our two options. Anyone wants to start? Okay, we'll start to the left. Commissioner Wyckoff.
Sustainable.
Inclusive and sustainable, okay. Commissioner Lutzis.
I'm still fine with economic growth pending that, that change to 5.3 that I
Just
specified.
No inclusive and.
Well, that's gonna come later, but that was my comment.
Okay, you have me confused. I just asked you for a specific
Economic growth,
by itself.
yes.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. So right now we're 1-1. Commissioner Bansinski.
Inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
Okay, that's 2-1. Commissioner Quadri.
I'm gonna say economic growth. I think, yeah, I'll stick with that vote. Thank you.
It's 2-2. Commissioner,
I'm gonna throw it back to you and go for sustainable and economic growth.
Oh,
so that's 3-3, right? Right. And see, this is why we did this in the.
That's why we do it this way. Yeah.
it's 3-2. What's your vote?
Yeah, 3-2, because we're only 6 here, we're not 7 yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
So you have to,
If you vote for economic development, then we're split 3-3. If you, then we're 4-2.
Thank you, Commissioner Bansinski. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Okay, so I go with sustainable and inclusive and sustainable. So that's 4-2, and that will be our amendment. And will the clerk please put that in and the votes for and against by name?
Maybe I can ask the clerk. Shannon,
no
do
motion.
you have the motion and second?
Is there?
I do not have a first motion or a second motion.
So this was not, I don't think
It was no motion. It was just a, it was just a, it was,
What do you say?
it was just a vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was a straw vote, so please note which commissioner voted, indicated with their straw which language they wanted.
Noted.
Of
Thank you.
course, noting my contingency on my vote as well.
Contingency?
Okay, we won't be
There's no
confused anymore.
contingencies, Mr.
Just-
Lutzis. You need to learn this before you get
Okay,
hammered by Mayor
moving on, moving on.
Herbert. And I'm a nice guy.
Well,
You're out of order. Okay. So do we have anything more on objective 5?
yes,
Oh, Commissioner, almost gone, Lutzis.
I have two things. Starting off with policy ED 5.2, the word infill on line 18, that doesn't quite fit with me. It just sounds like building to build. And so I wonder if striking infill to say just to achieve redevelopment in the downtown.
So strike and infill.
And infill, yes, excuse me.
The suggestion is to strike and infill. It's, any objections? Hearing none, that's a good one. Another blue one. Okay, Commissioner Lutzes.
Yes, and so now this was what I was speaking to earlier, and why I initially had spoken about the economic growth position, but 5.3, on the last line, 22 there, core that is self-supporting, can we change that to sustainable or sustaining, self-sustaining or something like that? I don't know if there's a preference on the commission for sustainable or self-sustaining.
So you have two suggestions and you're looking for the commission to clarify what you're trying to say. Okay. Are there any clarifications to Commissioner Lutz's suggestion? Commissioner Vanderleen.
I like what you're saying. I would just, a friendly addition. Perhaps we say an inviting and economically sustainable core.
Well, then you remove Commissioner Banazinski's vital. You know, we had that talk about
But you can leave
vitality.
that in there.
Yeah.
Leave that in there? That's
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
No, I just the idea of self-supporting rather than
Yes.
self-supporting.
Yeah, no, I
Reliable.
agree. And I think that makes sense to result in an inviting and
Can we just use inclusive, just like we did in the objective? Can we repeat that word? Consistency.
Okay.
the point I was trying to make is I think sustainable is better than self-supporting. I'm happy if you want to make a separate sort of recommendation about adding inclusive.
Yeah, I was just responding to Commissioner Vandelin's suggestion about putting inviting in there.
So Commissioner Quandary, you
So
would suggest, what would you suggest the change exactly to be from your perspective? I'm not talking about Commissioner Lutz's, but you have, what I heard was a separate idea.
My suggestion was to include inclusive and sustainable at the end of that sentence.
And then, so we would strike result in, and then put those two words and strike and inviting and vital.
No.
No, okay, no.
I think what it is
Commissioner
deleting the word self-supporting and either replacing self-supporting with sustainable or replacing self-supporting with inclusive and sustainable.
Correct. That was my suggestion. Yeah, inclusive and sustainable.
And that's what you're suggesting.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, so now we have one, which is striking self-supporting and inserting inclusive and sustainable. Are there any comments to that? Is there any objections to that? Hearing none, we are going to make that a blue change. Righto. So I think we're done with 5. Now, Commissioner Lutzis, this is your last chance to do 5. I know that this is remedial commission work. It's okay.
I'm gonna hound you guys with comments, public comments as a private citizen.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good line.
No, those were my comments for
Well, then
objective
we're going
5.
to move to number 6, ED number 6, before we eat on them anymore. Okay, so 6 goes through the top of page 27. Yes, Commissioner Lutzis.
On objective 6, line 24, it says consistent with the Kenmore vision. Is that one of the specific visions we have, like Vision 2050, or is that just the vision statement, or which vision is that referring to?
I think that's the vision statement. Kenmore vision.
Okay, can we say just the Kenmore vision statement to clarify, so there's no?
Yeah.
confusion with Vision 2050. I think that would be,
Okay, so the word statement would be added. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no objections, that will be added. So we're still in 6. You know, the vision should be asked, whose rose gold colored glasses is this going to be? Good through. Okay, so if I hear no further discussion on 6, then we're going to 7, and that's line 3, page 27 through line 11.
Chairman
actually,
Thompson, if I
Yes.
may just preface, objective 7. These are ones that I either made sure that these were consistent with our new climate action plan or talked with Nina Rasmussen, who you've met, the climate manager, and to make sure that these are in line with all of our new goals and policies in that element. So that's why you'll see all brand new policies and objectives with regards to that. So,
Well, then I have a technical question before they chomp on this.
well,
And just, may I?
yes.
Thank you. So how does this coordinate with the climate action element?
so that's, yeah, climate action plan and climate action element. I checked to make sure that there's corresponding or no conflicting policies that were in the climate action element. So, yeah,
Because the climate action element has a superiority in the law over the plan. It's just the plan is more legislative, but this is
correct.
required in the law. Okay, just technical. Okay. Any further comments on objective 7? Hearing, go ahead, Commissioner Lutz, as you're just dying to say something.
Yes and no. My comments were actually on objective 6 that I wasn't able to say before you
Okay,
and staff jumped in, so I apologize.
We have always allowed commissioners to go backward.
One time, is that right? Is a 1 strike rule?
Well, you probably have 3 strikes
Oh, boy.
tonight, so
Oh, no.
go ahead, strike 1.
Just a quick clarifying question. I'll make this brief, but policy of 6.2, line 33, it says estimated for 6 and 20-year time periods. Are those the only time periods that the city is going by, or were there other plans? And which time periods do those correspond to? I know we have our 20-year vision. So I was kind of curious about those numbers and if there were others to include, or maybe take out the 6, or what we're going by there.
Well, I'm not sure, so I can double check to see what they relate to, or we can take them out.
No, I'd appreciate that. I mean, if there's a reason
Yeah.
for them being in there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to make sure if there was a
Yeah.
state mandated timeline.
Oh, please, yes,
I don't
yes.
know. Yeah.
Don't want to get in trouble with the state. I think that's,
So that will be a item to come back.
Yeah.
Are you trying to put more gray hairs on our, our staff that have none?
well, trying my hardest not
Okay,
to,
great.
but
You're up.
okay, all right. Policy ED 6.3, talking about utilizing tax and fee systems. Would it be possible to maybe add at the end of that first sentence, so that's on line 36, comma, where appropriate, or comma, when necessary? The way it's written, it, saying utilize tax and fee systems, I don't want it to make it sound like we're gonna put up a whole bunch of tax and fee systems all the time, but maybe just something where necessary, or
Where appropriate.
Where
we'll
appropriate.
Give some more latitude to the council.
yeah, I think that would make more sense there. And then that's it for six.
So you agree with where appropriate?
Where appropriate,
I
that's
don't mean
perfectly
to
fine with
be-
me.
But we have to consider, we don't want to, you've given us, the staff have lectured us, and we agree that we don't want to tighten down too much on requirements because they could be expensive,
Mhm.
correct? I see they're nodding, so my memory is still working. So you're okay with that? Where
Yes, yep.
appropriate, okay, and no objections? That one's a blue one. Are you done now?
Yes, and I don't have any comments for seven, objective seven, so.
That made Debbie laugh, that's good. Okay, so we're back to seven now. Ouch. And that would be on page 27, 3 through line 11. Are there any further changes to that? Okay. Objective 8, 12 through line 17.
Commissioner Cadre, I guess I struggle with the word customer service. My suggestion perhaps would be develop a culture of excellent service that supports all residents and business in Kenmore. I think customer service just sounds a little too businessy. I'd like to think of myself as a resident and not just a customer of the city. So I think excellent service would makes more sense to me. And so I would suggest that we remove customer from that.
Strike customer. Okay, that is the proposal. I see no objections. I hear no objections. So that's a blue amendment. So still on number 8. Commissioner Litzis.
Just keeping in consistent with that position, policy 8.1, that also says customer service, excuse me.
Very good. Okay. I'll take that as just, we're gonna do that. Okay. Otherwise, our administration would have administered to that customer. Sorry. That didn't come out right. Oh. Okay, so we're still on 8, nothing more for 8, and then we're now to 9, and that's line 18 through 23.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wyckoff.
I'm wondering, since enhanced communication between city and local businesses, I'm wondering if this wouldn't be an opportunity to call out or spotlight the Kenmore Business Alliance, which the city does sit in on and actually hosts the meetings for. I mean, it couldn't be more enhanced than that.
Okay, so where would you put that? Or go ahead.
Does 9.2
Mhm.
address
It's
that?
kind of there, but I would just like to see credit for Kenmore Business Alliance
be.
and call it out.
Could be to encourage proactive or outreach to community business organizations such as
Right.
Kenmore
Yep.
Business Alliance.
Yeah, that would be fine. I know what happens. It's exemplary that the city does it, and I definitely think it should continue.
Is there any objection to adding that line? Hearing none, that's another blue one. Okay, no further comments on objective 9, so we're gonna go to objective 10, line 24 through the end of the page. Okay, hearing no comments on objective 10, we're going to page 28, objective 11. And that is through line 10. And I assume this is, yes, coordinated with.
Yeah, I was gonna preface this one is similar to my last comment for the climate element and action plan, that this is in line with our new DIA policies. So, and the agencies that are called out in ED 11.2 are ones that are the most common that cities and or municipalities, organizations work with these. In fact, my last work with North Shore School District, I reached out to several of these. So these are common organizations that businesses and municipalities and other public organizations work with.
So I should know the answer to this, but I guess for the record, is there a separate element for DEIA?
No.
Okay,
there is not.
thank you. I just wanted to be sure. Are there any further comments on objective 11? Seeing none, we will move to objective 12. That's line 11 through line 23, and Commissioner Banaszewski.
I have a question about policy 12.2. I have, where did this slogan, shop more, play more, find Ken more come from? I've not heard that in my 7 years of living here.
I saw that somewhere, but I'm trying to think of where.
Sign.
I have a sticker.
Yes, actually,
Yeah,
yes,
it's on stickers on various businesses.
that's right. So Janet Quinn, who works for the administration department office, she showed me that actually a couple days ago. So that's where I saw it. Yeah. So it has been an old slogan.
Well, where did it start? Is that a city effort or is that someone else's effort?
It was a city effort.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a city effort. I don't think it was tied directly to the love of Kenmore, but it came around right around that same time. And that's when the stickers came out. It's been several years now, but it was, I want to say it was around the time of the coaching of for the love of Kenmore. Yeah.
Commissioner Lutzis.
This is tying back into original discussion, but 12.1, that does call out the private businesses, Kenmore Air and the Lodge. Just curious if you would recommend we strike those?
If we're going to be consistent with our previous recommendations, then I'd say the answer is yes. Kenmore's Air Harbor versus Kenmore Air, so we don't want to call out specific business.
Yes, and so I mean, just looking at that, it could make sense to say promote Kenmore as a regional tourism destination with regional businesses. Stop.
Period. Yep.
Okay, so the idea is to strike everything on that line after, from such as to the end. Commissioner Banaszewski.
I'm not done with shop more, play more, find Kenmore. Is that, I've heard courtesy is contagious. I've heard for the love of Kenmore. Obviously, I've maybe been an ostrich with my head in the sand when it comes to shop more, play more, find Kenmore. But why is that one particularly called out? Is it because it has a tie to economic development with this call to shop? like shop more?
Yeah, I think it's just looking, I was trying to look for economic promotion, expansion, that kind of language. I guess my question to that is, if this is a past economic development effort from, I don't know how old it is at this point, a decade ago, is the city still utilizing this phrase or still promoting this on websites and materials and things like that? Or is this something that's just been kind of faded away through time? I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe Debbie, you know.
You're right, there have been several slogans that come up. So I guess the question would be, we could make this more generic to state something like continue to promote and expand Kenmore through branding opportunities. How about that?
That's good.
Like that.
Commissioner Wyckoff.
We are currently in the Kenmore Business Alliance, the KVA revitalizing, since we love that word, this branding of Find Kenmore. And there is a website that is being developed specifically for Find Kenmore to have all Kenmore registered businesses that are certified by Kenmore. They've gone through the Washington State Department of Revenue licensing process and paid the what is it, $25 fee if you're over X number of dollars. It's free if you're not. And that helps fund this website so that the community can use that as a resource to find your businesses in Kenmore. So I don't think there's any problem with what you're saying, but there is a lot of effort within another Kenmore association to brand this and drive that brand and bring awareness to it. So I don't know if we want to detract from that when we could support that effort.
Or could we also say a branding slogan or other similar slogans to support our businesses?
I mean, I think I'd be somewhat in favor of a general approach, just saying business promoting slogans. If the city comes up with a new one next year or something like that, I don't want it to be like cast off to the side because we only say this one. I'm happy to keep supporting this one and anything that might come up.
Yes, here and going down to 12.3 and a few other places. I guess there's a, what's our work here? It seems like we are in some places beginning to slip into implementation. We have an objective, and then we have policies to support that. So I think when we get into the specifics about do this, do that, you're moving into something that's beyond the scope, I think, and I look to staff to correct me if I'm wrong. We're moving out of the scope of what we're intended to do here. And I think to the extent that we get too specific, as been mentioned already, we just limit or end up with obsolete language in here. And we ought to keep this as broad and focus on objective and policy as we can.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm looking at section 12.3 and I see calling out the boating community. What about the cycling community? I mean, I think there are more bike owners here than boat owners, I would say. So I think Commissioner Van Willen's correct. I think we should avoid being specific in calling out the boating community or the cycling community, recreational community, the recreational communities. Yeah.
If that is the will of the commission, then we could leave that to our staff to work on generic but strong supporting language. Would you be willing to do that? That's a thumbs up from Todd. How about that, folks? Well, okay. So 12 will come back to us. And then, Commissioner Lutzis.
Going back to policy ED 12.1, I know we already struck everything after such as, but something felt like it was missing. Would it be possible to insert after with regional businesses and attractions, the words and attractions? Because I know that there's some other things that help promote us as sort of a regional tourism destination. Like St. Edwards, I think stuck out specifically. I know that helps our economy. It brings people here to Kenmore.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's not a business.
Yeah.
Yes, and those are businesses. So if that's okay with folks, regional businesses and attractions.
So the staff will take that under advisement. Okay. No further comments seen. So we're gonna go to blue objective 13, and that's line 24 through 28.
So just to start on this one, I'm assuming since we said Kenmore's Air Harbor, we're adding an apostrophe S here as well. Point of clarification.
Right, and any other, something that you might have to do to make it sound right,
Yeah.
you know, grammatically. Okay, is there any other comments? All right. All right, now we're under implementation strategies. And that would be pages, starts on page 28, line 30, and goes to, and which is 4F30 on line 30. I have a question, and on line 6, on page 29, do not create scarcity of commercial spaces in the city's commercial zones. Does that mean that we should expand commercial zones, or are we talking about inside those that are currently exist? Handling.
Speak well. I had a similar question in that same section. By its very nature, zoning and land development regulations can result in reduction in the availability of commercial for good reasons. Everything from design standards, parking, other things that. So I think this is really inconsistent with reality. I think certainly monitor commercial space availability and develop capacity to ensure, you know, you could say something like to be consistent with the city's economic development plan. But to say that we're not going to do anything in zoning or development regulations that would create scarcity, I think that's not realistic.
Yeah, that's a little hard to do. So yeah, I agree with that. The more I read this a second time, yeah.
So
third time.
Is there something we could do tonight to fix that?
Well, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Vanderland. I think the first part makes sense to me, but we're not trying to say that the end all be all is commercial because we're still trying to figure out what the next iteration of the downtown is. And so whether that's commercial space or it could be more housing, retail, we don't want to pin ourselves, I guess, is the answer. So if we strike that second part, or if there's Commissioner Vanderland, you had something else to
Yeah.
add there.
Yeah, if you strike from do not forward and add to ensure all zoning and development regulations are consistent with the city's economic development goals and objectives.
That makes sense, yes.
Okay. Is there any, that's the idea and that's been proposed. Is there any objection to that? Okay, looks like we're good. So that's a blue. Next. Commissioner Lucis.
Maybe I'm just not understanding this, but the first bullet, well, the first bullet point. So page 4F29, line 10, review of home occupation, comma, home business standards. Is that an entity within itself, home occupation, home business, or is that supposed to be and home business standards? It just wasn't reading right.
The way I read that is it's a home occupation, home business. So there's a home business, but then there's a home occupation, home business, which is a different classification, requires a different permit.
Oh, so it's one thing, a home occupation.
Correct. It's identifying a home occupation, home business.
And
Okay.
that doesn't include somebody who's a telecommuter.
Yeah, I think that's trying to add the addition of home business, because I think I might have mentioned this at our last meeting in the initial presentation, that over 60% of our businesses are home-based. But that doesn't mean that they are telecommuting. It's that they have license through the business license office that is home-based business.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very much in favor
Yeah.
of calling them out and supporting them since they are such a
But
significant.
does this, I guess,
percentage.
does this make sense?
Yes, that's what
Okay.
I'm asking.
Any other comments on implementation strategies part?
Just a general question. How does one find out where these home businesses are? I mean, is someone's not able to market or advertise? I mean, is there a directory in Kenmore? I mean, it's a general question that I have.
There is not, but there is a shift to doing more on the business registry, particularly for home businesses. So there is a shift in that direction because we do have a significant number of home businesses. So I don't think there's a specific directory just for them.
There will be.
There
It's
will be,
called-
but
it's
not
called
right.
Find Kenmore. That's specifically what that is for.
Yeah, I think what's being said here, there's an ease, where's it easy to find and then support and then publicize or whatever these businesses, which Commissioner Wyckoff made a statement about. And then there's the other issue of public information through the Department of Revenue of a listing of the businesses in Kenmore. Two different things, right?
Yeah.
Because the city cannot just put a list out on the wall here. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah. When I had to go get some data, I actually, first I talked with Teresa, our business licensing and public records specialist. And in fact, when I had to get on the approval list through Department of Revenue because it's a sensitive information. And once I was on that, then they were able to share that information because she was really the only one that could be shared the information first. But I think what Commissioner Wyckoff is saying, that this will be for more informational purposes. What are the businesses that are in Kenmore that are available versus the licensing, the operation, the revenue that they get per year? All that is, you know, personal information, or at least you have to get authorization.
And Todd, you said that 60% of the businesses are
60+%, yeah.
62. Yeah, the Find Kenmore would be it's intended to be a searchable directory, publicly available, something that you can share with your friends and neighbors. You can search, if I'm looking for carpet cleaning, I can search that database for carpet cleaning in registered Kenmore businesses that may be home-based businesses. Could be, I'm looking for a CPA, could be looking for an attorney. It could be looking, you know, whatever. And so it's not just an alphabetical listing of businesses, which is currently what we have. It's, you can drill down deeper and find the relevant businesses, but no, it won't be what volume of revenue they're producing each year and
Right,
taxes they're
right.
paying and all of that. It won't have that.
Any further comments on this section of the element? Here none. So that means we have went through Commissioner Lucis. You've been reluctant to raise your hand, but I saw it.
Yeah. Really quick question. I'm on page 4, F30. Are we there?
Huh?
Is that okay? Line number 8, leveraging and partnering with the area's educational institutions such as Bastyr University. I know that higher education is called out, but I do also recognize that a portion of our residents are not college educated. So would it be fair to say, and maybe the North Shore School District or local schools or something for those who might enter the workforce right after high school?
The easy way to do this, just strike such as Bastyr University.
That's
and
fine. Yeah,
put a-
that works too.
Okay, so if there's no objection, we will strike that and put a new period after the word institutions. So I think that includes everybody. Okay, is there anything more on this last section? Okay, hearing none. So we have some, we're going to get rid of the blue marks that we've already gone through and the yellow marks that we've done and gone through. So now we have new blue and some greeners.
Yep.
Meaning those things that you've clarified for us, and, you know, waved your wand at, and they're now better. So when are we going to, when do you want to, what's the deadline here?
So this, our next and last meeting of the year would be December 5th, correct? Yes.
So at the December 5th meeting, it would be one last quick check to say that we've hit everything. And at that point, then direction then to move to a public hearing. And the soonest we could have that public hearing would be in January at your January 16th meeting. So that's kind of what we would be looking for on the 5th.
And this is on the docket for 2024, correct?
It was on the docket for 2023. It's going to extend into 2024. And then there will be other items added to the docket. And the council has approval of the 2024 docket on the January 8th meeting.
Okay. Is there anything that we should know about the 2024 other than that it's, you know, it's just going to be what it's going to be. I mean, there's nothing, no surprises from what we're doing now.
It will be a substantial work plan for you to get through. I'm going to say that right now. So we're going to have to finish several, we're going to have to finish the economic development. That will be the first one. And then we're going to come back with, I would say, probably lighter touches to the downtown element and design element. And then we have to come back, and where we're really going to have to spend a substantial amount of time is on the housing and land use element to make those now consistent with the new state law,
That's going to be a
as
lot.
well as develop implementation regulations that go along with that. We also have, there are other elements that we'll have to bring back as well, the surface water element and the natural environment element. That's not the shoreline element or critical areas, just what we'll clarify that. So those are the things which will be coming back on your docket for next year. That's what the staff will be presenting to council in January.
We're glad you're with us, Don. That's Commissioner Vandeling.
Yes, at the end of our meeting materials, the staff provided us with answers to the questions that we posed in our last meeting. Thank you. I found most of those very interesting and illuminative. My one question, though, is in a number of places there was, in the response, there was a recommendation or a suggestion that we consider adding a policy or implementation measures related to those issues. It looks like some of those are actually included. I could kind of map some of them back to our blue section. Has that been uniformly added to it, or is that something that we should be coming back to you and
Yeah,
talking about?
I'll make sure that those are added if I inadvertently omitted some of them. But if there was one that specifically said to add or suggest addition of a new one, I'll double check. Yeah.
I could see some of them, but there was a few I couldn't quite.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so that's where we're going to go. So it's the staff's recommendation that the first meeting in January will be a public hearing.
Actually, it would be the second. So here's what I'm thinking. So on December 5th, it would be verifying that the changes that you've gone through tonight are all okay. If there's any other additional changes, and then sort of saying that you are satisfied that this is now ready to move to public hearing. And that public hearing date would be January 16th.
16th, okay.
I would then, on December 5th, as we're already after 9, maybe I could suggest that on December 5th, you also review the scope and rules, which we included in your packet tonight, unless you want to start that now.
Well, we're going to explain it.
And
now.
then, so that would also be added on the December 5th agenda. And then on the December 5th agenda, you would then be canceling the December 19th meeting and also the January 2nd meeting, because we felt that we might not be able to kind of get a quorum on the 2nd, and you also wouldn't have the docket approved by the council till the 8th. That would be the suggestion. And also, while I'm on scheduling, is on January 16th, the council, we're trying to put together a joint training with the council on January 16th, and this would occur from 6 to 7:30. Dinner would be provided. You would meet with council to have a presentation on parliamentary procedures. Jurassic Park is the name of, is sort of the title of the presentation. So that would be jointly with the council from 6 to 7:30. So your meeting on the 16th would then start at 7:30, your regular meeting.
Our regular meeting would start at 7:30.
Correct. So
And then the city council's just coming in just for,
it would be like a joint kind of meeting,
Training.
joint training for the council and the planning commission on parliamentary procedures, which would be sort of also a nice opportunity to kind of get to know the council members, have a bit of socialization over dinner, whether that's earlier than 6. I don't know the details. I'm just telling you that the intent. Then
Dinner is at 5:30.
Thank Thank you. Dinner, thank you. Dinner would be at 5:30, so a time for socialization, and then you'd get into the training from 6 to 7:30. Council would leave and you'd then start your regular commission meeting at 7:30.
Is Todd cooking? Just
That
kidding.
I don't know. Probably not. The answer is no.
It's likely pizza.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so let's move to the next item of,
Actually,
can we just go?
yes.
Do we want to just go ahead and cancel those two meetings tonight? Do you want
You
to?
certainly can. That's fine.
So that public notice can start in your, whatever, however you want to do it. So I will entertain a motion to cancel January 2nd and December 19th meetings of the Planning Commission.
So moved.
No, December.
Said it right, December 19th and January 2nd.
Okay.
Yes, so moved. To cancel those two meetings. Said you were
Second.
entertaining a motion.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, it's adopted. The motion's adopted. So do we have to set a special meeting for January 16th? Because we,
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to set a later start time.
Yeah, so the clerk will
take
work
care of
with
that.
the clerk from the council and figure that out.
Wonderful. We don't have to worry about that tonight. Okay, so hand up, and I shortchanged you again.
No, that was me. I just eager, but I can talk to Todd afterward. There was just,
Yeah, why don't we just do that?
that's fine.
Okay, so your Rules Committee has provided a draft. It's a, oh, Commissioner Fanacisky.
Chair Thompson, could we take a short break before we go into the rules?
Right,
Like
and
3 minutes, 5 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes,
Five, but we'll
5
give
minutes.
5 minutes, 22 after.
Thank you.
And then we're going to do this briefly to explain, and then we'll.
I do, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I have one thing before we take a break. We have to cancel the January 16th meeting as regular. And then we have to set it as a special meeting. So if we're going to cancel the 19th and the 2nd, maybe we should do that now. And then we set the 16th as a special meeting.
Okay, so anyone who wants to make that motion, let me know.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded with the language that our clerk has just enlightened us with. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Well stated, Shannon. All right, so we have a 5-minute, and then we'll come back and just have a little short discussion.
Oh, just take. Just take it over there. Well, listen up. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Wait, I don't know if your mic is on.
Oh, you know it's not. So the Rules Committee, based on its request from the commission, has reviewed, and because of the massive kind of issues that we, what we've been doing and what was there, we rewrote the rules. And these have to go to the city attorney for review before we can adopt them. So just to give you some background is that one of the deals is like on Article 2, Section 1 under membership, we struck all the Kenmore Municipal Code and just referred to it because it could be amended. And that's really out of our bailiwick anyway. And so there was several things that we cleaned up to be consistent, such as the removal section. It was cleaned up so it'd be to do with what the Kenmore Code actually says should be done. I'm just putting some, the annual work program, the docket is a little bit spelled out here, and the agendas, minutes and record. Then there's the public comment, and Shannon just was concerned about where was that virtual procedure, and that's later on under line 337, page 9, because we have remote attendance. And then another thing that we've done is put a consent calendar. So like approval of previous meeting minutes will be on the consent calendar. So we'll go right through that unless a member has an objection or a quick issue that can be resolved. And any other any other business under the consent calendar can be pulled by any one member. And that final approval of elements cannot be on the consent calendar. That has to be a separate item. So a lot of, and then there's a section on motions and voting to put into this about the issue of how we can just adopt without objection a motion. And then it goes to like the 9:30 hour, and then in order to continue, we have to have a motion to do that. Talks about the quorum. Now, I will have a question for the city attorney, and maybe our esteemed Debbie might know. When we only have 5 members appointed for the commission, because empties and the city council has not filled them, do we still have to do statutory quorum of 4 to pass, or can we do 3 out of 5 in that situation? I think you understand what I'm talking about.
I do, and I don't know those. I don't know the rules on that.
So that's a city attorney issue. Because I know on the city council, it doesn't matter. You have to have 4 to approve an ordinance. That's
So you're just saying in the cases, hopefully rare, where there is not 7 appointed members, what constitutes a quorum?
what constitutes what we can pass with, in the case of a 5, what can we?
In the case of 5?
There's only 5 members. So in the case of I know we can do little motions and stuff, but about passing an element to the council.
Like if two commissioners resign or something like that early, so
So
there are
it's
only,
basically in the case of a vacancy, so there is no, it's not that the commissioner doesn't show up at one meeting. It's
Correct.
that they're on,
Right.
okay, so, all right, well, I can ask the question for that. Hopefully, like I say, hopefully rare occurrence.
That's one thing then, that's not addressed here, except for normal motions, which we can do. Just, you need to, and then there's a whole issue about conflict of interest and appearance of fairness items, which are, I think, consistent with what our training was just now. And then there's conduct and, being good to everybody. And then redoing the minority reports slightly. And it's just say, that just like it is now, that any rule amendments need to be done starting at a prior meeting, which we are doing now. And then so our next meeting, which is January 16th, no,
Next meeting is December 5th.
December 5th. Well, if you would all look through these and circle items that are either, we really worked hard at trying to nitpick this so that it's readable and makes sense.
Can I still wear shorts?
Yes, there's no, we can put it, and we can put a golf cart, you can drive in a golf cart here. We can put that in the rules. Well, we can make under Article 4, Commissioner Conduct, the Wyckoff section, 7. And so we're trying to, and it again clarifies very the whole issue of public statements by commissioners. So there's nothing wrong with you saying you're a commissioner. It's just that you've got to clarify that you're not speaking for the commission.
just to clarify, the Rules Committee has transmitted this draft to city staff, so they're the ones editing it?
No,
No?
the city, well, they're going to give us some feedback, certainly,
Yeah.
but it's before us and they're
Uh-huh.
going to give us feedback, but the city attorney has to review this.
I don't want to send it to the city attorney till I have your final edits. It doesn't, because I don't want her being caught in several drafts and rewrites.
That is and also I'm sure you have some, on next meeting, you'll have some items that you would like clarified or changed.
I think my eye over this is just making sure it would be consistent with any new procedures that relate to the way meetings are run that have now been implemented, or anything that's really what I'm going to be looking at. And if there's anything in there which I know for sure is a conflict, I'll identify those. But other than
A
that,
conflict of what?
well, I don't know, a conflict with some sort of other rules or regulations or laws or something. But again, that's more the city attorney. But if anything jumps out, I'll flag it too.
Tried to do our best.
So if we have suggestions, do we work on this ourselves, or do we
next
talk
meet-
to city staff, and do
Okay,
they have the
so
copy?
They have a copy. Next meeting, this will be on our agenda after the element and go through it. But what Debbie just said is
Yes.
she wants our edits and things, so we get them kind of done and then submit them to the city staff, and I think submit them to the city attorney, but I think what Debbie's going to do, or Todd, or Debbie and Todd, or whatever, they may have specific comments and for things that we're gonna work on December 5th.
Yes, I think my clarifying question was if on December 5th, we're saying, hey, we'd like to edit this, is city staff the one who's working on their computers to edit, or are we gonna share a copy amongst ourselves
It's
to edit?
just like what we're doing now. The clerk will be
Recording, and then
wording.
city staff would notate that digitally, right?
No,
They have a copy in front of them.
We do have a copy of it.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, I just wanted to.
I printed that for you guys. So yeah, I have a copy and I could probably edit it while we're going through next time too.
Okay.
just
So,
like we do elements, right?
yeah, I mean,
That's what I mean, just like an element.
yeah,
So it's not gonna be different than an element, it'll be just like this.
Except right on December 5th, which might be your last meeting.
it will be.
Yes.
After tonight, I'm almost Sam Clancy. No, I did. No.
Don't look at me, I'll get me. I don't know you.
Well, one of you guys can be thankful because if he didn't move to the council, well, maybe one of us might be left off. So, who knows? I would like to, for those of you who did not listen to the whole confirmation confirmation process, I did in my question ask the council, of course Debbie had a list, but they didn't, of what can we do better? And I think that they were all happy as our consumers with what we've done. I don't know, I didn't ask that of Debbie, but anyway, they seem to be very, and you've told me that before, that they're happy with the product.
Yeah, they're happy with the product, and I think it's the reason we have a planning commission is state law, but the other reason is it gives a body of people time to work on in-depth on policy issues that the council doesn't have time to do. And I think what they're saying is the work that you present reflects that. You've done the research, you've done the background, you've looked at options, and you come up with a recommendation. So,
But
yeah.
you guys did the work too, and I did say that during the meeting. Well, really,
Well,
we
the-
can't do this without you
Our
all.
job is to support you. Our job is to bring you forward work that you can then feel comfortable that you have the research behind it and to make those decisions. That's our job, to support you.
Now, there may be some debate, I gotta finish here, but about this, but I think when we go through this in detail and finish it in detail, it really gets rid of odds and ends that the council has a tendency to find. So I'm, all those little folks, including golf carts, that you did tonight, it makes a difference to the council. I strongly believe so, and you'll tell us so on January, whenever your first meeting is. But having received this stuff on the council, I've seen some horrible, incomplete work, and it does create a lot of work for a city council. That our staff who does all the groundwork, and all of you who read this and have all these questions and amendments, I personally thank you, and makes my job a whole lot easier, which I don't even know what my job is. So we welcome you to aboard Portland.
Are you ready to run away?
So
Sorry.
is there any objection at the next meeting for our two new folks to sit where they're sitting? Great. Has this been helpful? Is this gonna happen? No, she knows everything. So when you do your orientation from that side of the dais, you better listen because otherwise it's bad news.
We will be we're trying to set up a meeting with the new commissioners to do an orientation with staff ahead of the first official meeting. So we just need to find a date and a time that's convenient.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? Oh, the good of Council Member Banaziski.
Well, still commissioner, but
Oh, Commissioner. I'm looking at him and saying, that's good. Did you get elected by accident? No.
yeah, I ran a very invisible campaign and got invisibly elected for an invisible seat. No. Thank you, Dwight, for you shared some kind words about our work. So I just wanted to say thank you for your work because you've been a very good leader for us. So thank you for all that you do as our chair.
You're too nice.
I second
You're
that.
welcome.
Thank you.
No, you're supposed to say thank you and I say you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, and my second go to the order thing
I
is,
thought you said thank you for your service. That's what I thought you said. Oh, yeah. You're welcome.
and my second go to the order is a good night to Michelle. So good night, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing, the meeting is adjourned at 9:38.
Good night, everyone.